Well, draft day has arrived, and so has another edition of the Cowboys Squad Show. Here we go, and welcome to another edition of the Cowboys Squad Show. It's a show that is so big, it needs no introduction, so we're not going to use one. I am joined today, though, by the co-host of the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast. That would be Marcus Mosher. Good morning, Marcus. And, of course, my co-host on the in-season Cowboys postcasts, the one and only the coach, Glenn Stretch Smith. All right, gentlemen, we've been kicking it around. Marcus, you've been going nonstop since the end of the Super Bowl. Here we are. Draft day has arrived.
It's the best day of the year. My wife woke me up this morning and asked me if I was excited for Christmas, and I told her it's better than Christmas. It's the one time of the year that all 32 teams are excited about their future. I'm excited to see what the Cowboys do tonight. I think this is the most uncertainty surrounding a pick that they've had, especially one inside the top 15 in a long time.
By the way, real quick, Coach.
I agree. I think there's a lot of where does this team go, and everybody has a mock opinion, and everybody has. I mean, there's so many varying opinions that are out there, and it starts with the fact that it's a really knowing that you're not going to be any good unless you have one of these, and it's a really not a very good quarterback class. I think that's what's kind of got so much anticipation and so much uncertainty as to where are guys going to go and where are these GMs going to go, and then how many first-round picks do you really believe there are? And then you take the quarterbacks out of that equation. Does that mean there's 17 true first-round picks? And I just think you're going to see a lot of jockeying, especially at 12 where the Cowboys are, because I really believe they're going to receive a bunch of phone calls, because I think they're going to be some of these guys who some of the mock drafts have going very early are going to start to fall. And I think that's a good position for the Cowboys to be in, because, when everybody around you is catching a fish and you're sitting there and you're not even getting a bite, it changes your whole mentality. And when you have so many young GMs in the game right now, are they going to be patient enough to do what I hope the Cowboys do, which is let the draft come to you? Just let it unfold, take the phone calls, discuss everything that needs to be out there. And then, I do trust Will McClay. I do think the board's right. So let it come to you.
Well, and the other thing I was going to say, Stretch, is because the Cowboys put such an emphasis on the draft compared to maybe other teams that are more active in free agency or trades. This is really the one time of the year the Cowboys have to get it right to get their team better, right? Because they're just not going to go out and sign the big-time free agents. They're not going to go out and make these big-time moves, via trade. So it's a really, really important night, and we'll see if Will McClay and the rest of the crew can navigate this draft.
Yeah, and the times that Jerry has, and you can say, well, free agency, or he has stepped up and made a big trade when, he traded for Amari Cooper. I mean, he took a lot of heat for that. So I think the PR situation for the Cowboys has also been, as we know, in the Metroplex with what's going on with the Mavericks and how Nico Harrison has stunk it up. Boy, is that taking some of the pressure off the Cowboys.
Well, can I ask you a question about this, though, really quickly? Because one of the things that we've seen in a lot of, these mock drafts that have come out like on Thursday morning, and we have one from Albert Breer where he has the Cowboys taking Gray Zabel, a guard/center from North Dakota State.
No.
Do you think the Cowboys are kind of paying attention to some of the outside noise of, hey, this team isn't super talented, it was a disappointing year? Do they listen to that? Like, because what I'm basically asking is, can they afford to draft like an interior offensive lineman at 12, or will the fan base just absolutely revolt against that?
If they draft a guy at 12 from North Dakota State School of the Mines that looks like Ted Lasso, yes.
Well,
there's going to be.
What if it's Tyler Booker, the Alabama guard? It's still, that's obviously
his
a bigger
name.
school.
Josh Simmons.
Yeah, any of the offensive linemen, because I think one of the concerns the Cowboy fans have is, hey, you've spent a lot of resources on your offensive line. You know, a first-round pick in 2022, a first-round pick in 2024, a third-round pick last year in Cooper Beebe. Like, you've invested a lot in the offensive line, and that's not a bad thing. But this team needs more than just an offensive line.
No doubt about it. It is an offensive. I'm putting my goggles on here because I'm just looking at how I rank these inside guys. And if you take an inside guy, if you take a center or two guards, he better be a Pro Bowl guy. That's the bottom line in my estimation. Because I think what you got out of Hoffman playing in there, what you got out of Beebe playing in there, were two serviceable guys. And so, yes, if they take a guard in that position, I mean, literally, you're going to see me with an ice pack on my head because I'm going to fall backwards. There's no way I can see them doing that. But is there a possibility? And I'm saying at 12. Is there a possibility that they move back? I think absolutely there is, because I think this draft, and we talked about this on the last show, if you look at it really hard between, say, 35 and 85, so those 50 players in there, I think are really, really, there's some really good football players in there. And I'm talking about for the value. Mm-hmm. So now the question becomes, if you come out of 12, how do you pick up as many pieces between 35 and 85 as you can? And that's where, again, I'm going to hope that Will McClay has it, and the rest of that scouting staff has it put together right, because I believe the second round pick at 40, whatever it is, the third round pick at 70, whatever it is just as important,
I agree,
as this pick if they stay at 12, because they got to get 3 starters.
So, Stretch, I wanted to ask you about a trade.
Go ahead, real quick. I forgot to say a little house cleaning here. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. All right, Marcus, go ahead.
Now, Marcus, let me answer your question. Do they pay attention to the outside noise? Hell yeah. And anybody that says they don't, seriously, I mean, that, you know, and I was in the building a while back, but they circulated what they call the clips, which is every NFL clip that is gotten out of every publication that's out there and anything that's on, and they circulate it around the office. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? You want to know what's going on around the league. What are guys saying? What are people saying about other players? What's going on in the NFL world? And there's nothing wrong with that. Do they read it every day? Hell yeah, they read it every day. Do they listen to what people say? Absolutely, they listen to what people say. Do they have thick skin? And are the Jones and the Jones family tough? They are that. They're thick-skinned and they're tough, and they can handle all that. But absolutely, they're reading what people are saying, and you're doing it as a coaching staff, and you're doing it in every way imaginable. I got news for you. I was here during 5 and 11 seasons, and I was here when we won the Super Bowl. And in 5 and 11 seasons, you're not going out to eat. You're picking it up, PF Chang's to go, because you don't want to hear all the, you don't want to hear it. And I don't care whether it's the ticket or the fan or anything else that's out there. And now all the things that, you guys do on social media and everybody does, absolutely they listen. And anybody that says they doesn't or they don't, get off, just lay off for 2 weeks and quit, because they listen.
All right. So I wanted to ask you about trading back, because I believe the Cowboys have about 5 to 7 names that they feel really good about if they trade back, even 5 spots, 4 spots, right? And maybe that's the list of like Zabel, Booker, Emeka Egbuka. I mean, you could list the names. But one of the things I want to know is, I don't think there's our playmakers like at receiver that teams are going to trade up for that we usually see. But Miami drafts at 13, and they have a clear need on the offensive line. Generally, teams don't trade up for offensive linemen, but could you see that being the case in this year's draft? Because we know Miami's going to try to draft one there. Could you see a team like Arizona or Seattle trying to get ahead of Miami to get that tackle or to get that guard?
Sure, I could. And think about, here's the thing that I think, when we talk about reading the clips, let's read a little bit of what Greer is saying coming out of Miami.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, hey, we're not letting, we're not going to let Tyreek Hill get out of here. We're going to hang on to him. Well, Tyreek Hill is most effective when he can run those deep overs, when he can get way down the field. In order to do that, you got to have and be able to run 6 and 7 man protections, and you got to be really good in the offensive line. Kansas City can do that because, number one, Mahomes can let it rip, but number two, because they're really good in the offensive line. And so that McDaniels loves that, hey, let's let it go mentality, and so does Tua. And so, yes, I believe that you could see a number of teams be calling for that 12 pick to get one of these, possibly premier or one of the 5 of 6 offensive linemen who everybody had tagged with a big number.
Let me ask you real quick, both of you, Marcus too. I didn't mean to cut you off. When you guys talk about the Cowboys possibly trading down, is it because you think of all the teams, they're in the best position to do so compared to the other teams ahead of them that may not want to?
I think part of it is that this front office likes trading down and they like accumulating picks. We saw that last year. They moved down a couple spots, picked up a 3rd rounder, still kind of got the offensive tackle they wanted in Tyler Guyton. So they've shown a willingness to trade down. They did it in the Micah Parsons draft as well. I also, and this is one of the questions I was going to ask you, Stretch. Let's say they get an offer from Seattle at 18, but it's not for a 2nd round pick because that's generally what the trade value chart says. But in this draft, it's a 3rd round pick because you're not trading up for the same quality of player. Do you think the Cowboys would be okay losing a deal to move back 6, 7 spots, but still picking up a 3rd round pick to draft maybe that running back that they need and at that spot?
If I'm in the room and I had a say at this time, and this is just me generally how I think of a lot of different things. If you have, let's just say we're playing golf, and I know I can hit it 320 pretty much all day, but I've hit one 260 and it is right down the heart. Mm-hmm. And you're going to say, well, you want a mulligan here? Absolutely. I'm going to say no. I want the bird in the hand versus 2 in the bush. I'm answering this to say I don't know how the staff, how does Schottenheimer, we don't know, he's never been a head coach. How is he's going to have a say in that room? How is he going to, and what is he going to, and how will he react when Jerry comes to him with that question? You're correct in saying that Will McClay has shown a want to because he has a trust in the scouting staff to say, I trust my guys enough to think that we have so-and-so here who has a 3rd round grade, and we believe he's a 2nd round player. Mm-hmm. And we think if we could get this scenario right here and pick this extra player up, and we don't know, maybe just say it's a linebacker, and we don't know the health of Overshown. We know we need another linebacker in this situation. You see what I'm saying? There's a lot of different moving variables to try and really put your finger on what they could do. And that's why I always ask, when everyone says, well, the mock draft says the Cowboys are taking Matthew Golden, my response is, are you sure they're taking him at 12? Because is that where they're going to be? And so I think that's what makes it so, fun to watch, whatever the scenario is. But
well, here's the other thing that I'm curious is I want to see what Brian Schottenheimer and their front office, how big is their appetite for risk? Because this is a front office and Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones that'll never be fired, right? No matter how poorly they draft, they'll never get fired. So are they more willing to take a chance on some of these players with higher upside? Because I think players like Gray Zabel and Tyler Booker, to me, that's like hitting a double, right? Like, hey, you feel pretty good about what they're going to be, but are those guys, if they hit, are they franchise changing players? And I think you would probably agree. No, probably not. They're solid starters that help your team. But I kind of feel like this roster is several steps behind the Eagles, several steps behind some of the other contenders. I feel like they need to start swinging for the fences a little bit to try to make up that talent gap. But maybe Brian Schottenheimer's not comfortable doing that in round 1 and in round 2. That's what I want to see tonight. What is their appetite for risk?
I mean, you're right. Excuse me. You're correct in saying Jerry is a risk taker. What is he by? What is he by trade? He drills for oil. I mean, go over there and drill a hole over there, and if it doesn't hit, okay, drill another one over there. He's not afraid. Excuse me, to take that risk. Schottenheimer is not. I believe he's just like his dad. I mean, they're gonna go at running the football.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think that you could get that extra offensive lineman or maybe that extra, tackle, swing tackle, whatever the scenario is, I believe that he would do that. Here's the thing. I look back and I tell you, Brock Hoffman's a pretty good football player.
Yeah, he is.
He really is. And so my question becomes, okay, is this guy, whoever that is, Booker, whoever it is he that much better than Brock Hoffman? Because Brock Hoffman, really, and until you get into the fire and you get the opportunity to play in the NFL, we really don't know. But we do know that Brock Hoffman, I mean, he'll get after you. He's got some nastiness. He's got a little shit.
He's a starting caliber player. He's not an elite player, but he's a starting caliber offensive lineman in the NFL.
Correct. That's correct. So my question would be: are these guys significantly better than that? And those are all the discussions I'm sure they're having.
And the other part of it is, okay, let's say Tyler Booker is significantly better than Brock Hoffman, because I do think he probably would be. How much does that move the needle for your football team, right? Like, let's say Booker's a Pro Bowl guard and Hoffman is a quality starter. Is that making you a win better each year? Probably not, right? Like, so that's where I come back to. Like, yes, it's really nice to have a great offensive line, but you don't need to spend a first-round pick on every single offensive lineman to win the Super Bowl, right? Like, look at Philadelphia. Their interior offensive line were 2 second-round picks and a guy they got in free agency that they paid $2 million to, in Mekhi Becton. Same for the Chiefs. Those guys were all second, third-round picks. I think Trey Smith was a 6th-round pick. You don't need to have 2 first-round guards to have a good offensive line in the NFL, and that's what the Cowboys would have if they drafted Booker and then paired him with Tyler Smith and then Cooper Beebe at center, who's a 3rd-round pick. You don't need that.
I agree. I mean, I am in no way, shape, form, or fashion expecting them at all to go offensive line with this 12 pick. No, there's no way, because like you said, number one, it doesn't move the needle, and number two, it's not addressing a frontline need for this football team right now. The frontline need for this football team right now, we know they got to have a 2 wideout. We know they need possibly another back. We know that they need a corner. I mean, those are all things that we know.
You could use another defensive lineman, either spot, edge or defensive tackle.
Fine. I mean, you see what I'm saying? Fine. You know what I mean? You can play that domino if you want to. I'm good with that. And you're right. So anything, in my mind, is right now is better than an offensive line.
Well, and that's where I think some of these offensive line names that have been mentioned over the last 24, 48 hours, I wonder if they're just being thrown out. So teams that maybe are interested in drafting a Gray Zabel will want to come up ahead of Miami to grab them. I agree with you. It feels like if they take a guard or center at 12, you're going to have a lot of very unhappy Cowboy fans on Thursday night.
All right, hold that thought. Yeah, hold that thought. When we come back, I want to ask both of you a question about the whole process of trading, not trading, who to go after, and how that works. We'll get into that when we return. We have a lot of people, though, that have already jumped in via the comment crew. We want to hear from you. We want you to be a part of the show. We'll get to your comments as well coming up. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. All right, I want to talk to you guys about Monarch Money. If you ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's really easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, your investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you can start building wealth. They have great insights, all in one convenience and easy collaboration. If you're managing your money with a partner or want to do so, it's smoother than ever. You can track and share your personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. All right, welcome back to the Cowboy Squad Show. Marcus Mosher, the coach, Glenn Stretch Smith, and I am Jeff Biggs. Happy to be with you. Draft day is here. We are hours away from round one tonight from the not frozen tundra at Lambeau Field. It's going to be hot tonight with a huge draft for the Cowboys coming up. Can't wait. Before I ask my question, Marcus Mosher, you guys are going to be on. I want to make sure we let everyone know. You and Landon are going to be on after round one tonight, right? Wait, did I mute
As soon
you?
as the draft ends,
Okay.
we will be on the show, Locked on Cowboys YouTube feed. The podcast will show up right away, so make sure you check that out. We'll break down who the Cowboys picked at 12 or wherever they picked, and then we'll get you ready for day 2 of the draft as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. Look forward to that, Marcus Mosher and Landon McCool tonight after round one. And I know, Coach, you're going to be busy all day doing stuff as well all weekend. And then we'll be back with you again with our show, our squad show, our next episode on Monday. Okay, so here's my question to both of you. Marcus, you brought up swinging for the fences. Coach, you've talked about trading back. Give me a little peek behind the curtain, Stretch, about how that works when you're in the room, the draft is going. Who kind of takes the lead here? I mean, is it Will? Is it the coach? Is it Jerry or Steven? Who kind of makes the push of, hey, why don't we go this direction? Or is it like you said, it just you're just waiting and letting it come to you?
Well, let's start by saying they're already in there and have been in there probably since about 6 this morning. I can tell you the phone has already rang multiple times with teams gauging the interest of where the Cowboys are. Okay, so let's just say, for instance, Mickey Loomis, whose son works for the Cowboys, he obviously his dad is the general manager of the Saints. I would be willing to bet you that there have been talks between just those guys that know each other, just to say, what are you guys thinking? Where are you now? Whether you're tipping your hand or not, that's another thing. I mean, guys.
Well, I was going to ask you that, Stretch. Like, when you do these calls, the Saints are at 9, the Cowboys are at 12. Would Mickey Loomis want to know like who you're coming up for? Does he ask, hey, which side of the ball would you be coming up for? How does that go?
I think he might say, he might say, or he might throw you. He might throw you a crumpet to get you to answer. He might say, hey, we're thinking.
How about you?
We're thinking X. And then you might say, okay, well, we're thinking here. Okay, well, what would it take here? And here might be the scenario. If this player starts to slide and we call you, we'd have an interest in that. Okay, now you're gauging where he's at. And you might take 4, 5, or 6 of those calls today. And then all of a sudden, let's say, at noon, everybody's going to go grab lunch. And by the way, while we're having lunch, we're going to throw together we're going to take what we've heard from these calls and what what's being said around the league, and we're going to put together our final mock draft. Okay, so let's just say 1 or 2 of the quarterbacks is not in good standing right now. Or, we know that there's been some talk of whether Shedeur is or isn't up there. And let's just say they may play that game of redoing after they've taken in all this information, kind of giving a mock draft while they're eating lunch, and just say, this is all the information we've heard. I've talked to my guy around the league. This guy's talked to that guy over at New England. This guy's talked to him. You see what I'm saying? And you're just kind of trying to gather as much as you can. And I believe that the phone is ringing, and the phone will be ringing all day today with guys looking at different scenarios.
How much stress eating is there in the war room? Because I think I would be just eating everything as you wait for your guy to fall on the clock.
Oh, you stopped. You stopped up there at Quick Trip and got a sleeve of Tums before you went in there because you knew. And during the day, I might have stopped in there and got me a menthol cig. Because you got to have a little something to dial you in a little bit. But it's very nerve wracking. I'll tell you, when they sent me to go. And this was, I went and spent a week with Randy Moss, and I was in, I'm in Charleston, West Virginia. I'm in the JW Marriott. I'd spent a week in West Virginia talking to the coaches, talking to everybody that I could talk to about Randy Moss, spending time with Randy Moss, playing basketball, going to Hooters, the whole 9 yards. And I can remember sitting there. And just, I had the jersey, I had the hat. I just knew Jerry's going to send the plane, and I'm not going to have to, I'm not going to have to go to Lexington to fly out of here. I'm going to fly right out of here. And, it's nerve wracking. And so that it really is. It's one of those things where you just don't know till the last minute what's going to happen. And that's why I think all these mock drafts, you got to put it out there, but nobody really knows until the trigger is pulled what's going to happen. And then, I'm sitting there thinking, we are going to take this guy. I've convinced Lacewell to tell Jerry to take this guy. And then, Coach Gailey just didn't feel that great about it. And the Cowboys picked Greg Ellis. And I'm like, how do I get out of this place? So it's nerve-wracking.
I got another question for you. How much arguing is in the war room when, not only when you're on the clock, but like when you're leading up, or is the board so set that there's really not any big disagreements?
The disagreements have already happened. Okay. They've already had those, butt hurt feelings. They've already done all that. So when you get to this time, it's not that this is not the time, and everybody knows that this is not the time for hurt feelings. Now, it doesn't mean that, if a coach wants a certain player and the scouting staff wants another player, and you get who the scouting staff wants. That's not to say that a coach doesn't go down the hall and bark a few words that would make a sailor blush. That does happen. But inside the war room and inside what's going on, those discussions have already taken place. And there has been, I'm sure, not heated discussions, but discussions with passion for guys that feel a certain way about certain players. I saw it happen all the time because let's be honest, they know, just like I said, if they're passing out the clips every day, you think everybody at the Star, including secretaries and everybody else, doesn't know that you better get 3 starters out of this draft. Yeah. They know that. Yeah. And so if they feel like one of those guys isn't that guy, or they felt like their guy was better, you're going to have some hurt feelings. It's just human nature.
Let me ask you this, Coach, and Marcus, you as well. Since our last show on Monday, Jerry Jones said that the Cowboys were, quote, working on pretty substantive trades. What did you guys take from that? What do you think? Do you believe him? Do you think it's true?
I mean, I tend to believe him because whenever he said they've been working on trades before, they almost always get done. Jerry was on 105.3 The Fan talking about how they were almost ready to make a trade for a receiver at the deadline. And of course, like an hour later, they made the move for Mingo. I think the thing that you're trying to figure out is, what does he consider substantial? Is that like a big time player? Is that moving up in the draft? My guess is it's maybe for a big salary player. You look at like somebody like Jalen Ramsey, who the Dolphins have said they're going to move on from. I don't think it's going to be a lot to get Jalen Ramsey. You're probably looking at a day 3 pick because his salary is so high. I think it's something like that. I think Travis Etienne over in Jacksonville, if the Jaguars draft Ashton Genty with the 5th overall pick, I don't think Etienne's going to be there. So I think it's something like that, but I don't envision them over the next 12 hours trading one of their top picks because they need those cheap contracts.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you that and Marcus, he said hang the phone up. I guarantee you they've hung the phone up if that's the case, because there have been exploratory calls for Micah Parsons and what it would take to see if they could get Micah Parsons.
And I'm sure they've listened and then probably hung up because it's really hard to find a Micah, right? And it's really hard to build a defense around, non-star players. But yeah, I think you take calls for everybody because you wouldn't be doing your job if you're not at least listening, right? And I'm sure that's, part of the part of all the stuff that goes into this weekend. All
right. Hey, we're going to take timeout number 2 here really quick. And then when we come back, Marcus, you and Landon did your finale, right? Mm-hmm. So I want to hear how that went, and we'll get some comments from some of our guests as well. We appreciate you being with us. It's draft day. It's finally here. We are ready to go for tonight, round 1 from Green Bay. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. All right, want to talk to you about LinkedIn. And as a small business owner, your work does not end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free. You can share it with your network and get qualified candidates all in one place. You can post your job with LinkedIn's new feature that can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip: add the hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, welcome back to the Cowboys Squad Show. Glenn Stretch Smith, the coach, Marcus Mosher, and I am Jeff Biggs. So happy to be with you. Can't wait for the draft to begin tonight. We are counting down our final show. Marcus and Landon McCool will be on with you tonight after round 1. But Marcus, tell us how your final draft show went here before we get into tonight.
Yeah, so Landon and I made our predictions for what the Cowboys will do in round one, and we both kind of came to the conclusion they would love to trade down to. I think they would like to move down to the late teens, even early 20s, and that would just open them up to more players, whether that's Jihad Campbell, a linebacker that they had in for a 30 visit, one of the interior offensive linemen, maybe Emeka Ibuka, the wide receiver from Ohio State. I think that's the number one preference. But if they're sticking at 12, I still think Matthew Golden, the receiver from Texas, is the player that makes the most sense for them. I like Tetairoa McMillan better. I think he's probably higher on their draft board. Wouldn't be surprised if he goes to the top 10. But I go back to what Brian Schottenheimer said at the NFL Combine. They want an explosive, dynamic number 2 receiver. And I love McMillan. But those words don't really tell me Tetairoa McMillan, right? They need somebody with some speed that can play the Z, that can maybe come in and play some slot if needed. I know Golden's production was not great last year, but he does have that ability to get open really quickly. And one of the things that we've learned over the years with Dak, I think he really values the receivers that create the quick separation. You go back to when he was a rookie. He loved having Cole Beasley. He connected with Amari Cooper because Amari ran fantastic routes and got open. He does really well with CeeDee Lamb. I think Matthew Golden as a number 2 in this wide receiver in this offense, while it's maybe a bit of a reach at 12, I do think he fits the offense particularly well.
Coach, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think the upside, I like Golden better, his upside better than McMillan. I think that when you look at the trajectory of how he's playing and what he did at Texas, how he's gone about, I think getting better it felt like during the season and going into the SEC championship game, he got better and better and better every week. And so I'm looking at him and thinking, I like that upside. Do I like a 6'4" receiver? Yeah, absolutely. And would I be disappointed with no, I would not. But I believe the upside, excuse me, for Golden is there. And my next comment is I do think it's a little rich at 12, but
I agree.
I also believe that there are between, and this is for the Cowboys, this is what I've heard, they have between 13 and 15 first-round grades. Now, other teams are close to that too. That's why I think the phone will be ringing like crazy. And then do you see the value? Does Jerry, Stephen, Will McClay, do they see value in moving back however many those places are to get another one of those picks that we've talked about that's going to be between 35 and 85? I think that really is the key.
Let me ask you, let's say you're sitting at 12 and your last 2 first-round graded players are like Jihad Campbell, the off-ball linebacker from Alabama, and let's say Tyler Booker. Again, just making up names. How do you weigh those 2 positions, linebacker and guard, compared to, let's say they have Golden as a second-round player, but he's right there on the stack? Do you feel comfortable taking a lower-graded player because receiver is just a more valuable position than guard and linebacker?
Good question.
I mean, I personally think that you have to have – well, let me answer it another way. The Cowboys have had issues stopping the run in the past. We know he is a thudded up, downhill, get after you linebacker. Now, here's what we don't know. We don't know how Eberflus values that position. I think we know he's looked at the cut-ups. We know he's identified what the strengths and the weaknesses of that defense are in his scheme, but we don't know how much. And I hope you hear what I'm saying, because I'm a football coach by trade. I'm not a word savant, but I don't know how much he values that particular characteristic or those particular traits. And then this is a guy that got fired in Chicago. Is he going to feel confident walking in that room and saying, Jihad Campbell can make a difference right now in our defense? Now, if he does that, Jerry will listen. If he doesn't do that, then you see what I'm saying there. There's got to have some comfort, and there's got to be some give and take with all of it. But I still go back to, I do trust Will McClay, and I think he's done a very good job over the years of scouting guys and slotting guys. And you talked earlier about Jalen Ramsey. I mean, if that's the case, could you see a scenario where the Cowboys stay right where they're at 12 and say, okay, that might be a little rich for Matthew Golden, but if they were to get Jalen Ramsey, they were to get draft Golden, they were to get either of the Ohio State backs. I don't think they're 1A and 1B to me. And then you got yourself a linebacker in the third round. Now all of a sudden you've done the same as moving back in the draft. You've got what you feel like were your 3 starters, plus you made a trade and got a 4 starter in Jalen Ramsey. I just think there's so many different variables here, and we could go hours on this show, and I don't think not be able to chop it up the way and it should be chopped up until we see the real, what really is there.
I love Jihad Campbell, by the way, but we should point out that Eberflus has a pretty good track record of developing linebackers, guys that weren't necessarily high picks. I think back to like somebody like Anthony Hitchens, who was a 4th round pick from Iowa, turned him into a pretty good linebacker, right? Or think about 2016 when Eberflus was here and he was the linebacker coach then. He took someone like Rolando McClain, who was out of football, and for half a season, he was unbelievable. So I don't necessarily think Eberflus needs like a top 15 linebacker, in the draft to get good quality play. But maybe he feels like, hey, I don't have that guy on the roster that I feel like I can develop. I need somebody with more traits. That's where I'm going to be curious to see how much power Stephen Jones, Jerry Jones, Will McClay give these coaches, because it's a new coaching staff. I think the previous coaching staff, Mike McCarthy, I don't know how much he even wanted to get into the process. It seems like he let the front office kind of make the picks that they wanted to pick. We know that Jerry and Stephen will listen to their coaches. I'm curious to see what happens this year.
Yeah, I think we'll be able to come on here next week, and that's exactly what we'll be talking about, because you'll see how that looks. I go back to when they drafted Tristan Hill, and you had was a defensive line coach, Rod Marinelli. He felt like he was firm in what he believed, and he wanted Tristan Hill out of Central Florida, and everybody's like, this guy's a 5'10" fire plug. And, I can remember everybody beating the pickup, and, he turned out to be average as a bowl of grits, but Marinelli was able to go in there and make a case for that. And I'm sure that at the end of the day, there were probably some scouts that said, I told you. Right, I told you Tristan Hill was average. I told you.
Well, I was going to say there's always 2 schools of philosophy here. You get the coaches that think they could give me the traits and I'll coach them up. And I think that's what Marinelli did a lot, right? Like Tristan Hill was incredibly athletic. He thought he could get the most out of him. And then there's the other coaches that want the guys that are pro ready, that they feel like they don't have to coach too much, right? Like, hey, just give me this guy. We won't have to worry about him. He's ready to go. I'm really interested to see what Brian Schottenheimer and Matt Eberflus do with some of these picks.
Yeah.
Okay, hey, we're going to take our final timeout, and then we're going to have our final segment before we wrap things up. It is draft day. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. Got a lot of people jumping in via the comment section. We want to hear from you. And I have a Brian Schottenheimer question. You're talking about receiver and offense and what they may want to do. A little different side of the coin I want to run by you guys. We'll do that when we come back. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. All right, well, got to talk to you about Game Time and what they're doing, because it's that time of the year. I mean, it's draft time tonight, but for Game Time, There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena. And with Game Time, you can be a part of it without the stress of last minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when the demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip off gets closer, and their last minute deals can save you up to 60%. Uh, love the last minute deals. The all in pricing also means that you get no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, welcome back to the Cowboys Squad Show. Marcus Mosher, the coach, Glenn Stretch Smith. I am Jeff Biggs. It is draft day tonight in Green Bay. Round one kicks off at about 7 o'clock Central Time, our time here in Texas. So I want to ask you guys this. We've talked about the need at wide receiver. But one thing, and I think you both have brought it up, I think maybe last week, that Brian Schottenheimer likes to run the football. I mean, you look at his career and his track record, and he's been a part of revamping and putting rushing offenses, near at the top or near the top in the NFL. So I'm wondering, how does that come into play when you start talking about the offensive line and potential running back selections?
Well, one of the things that Schottenheimer said at the combine is that, you look at the history of the draft and you don't need to draft a running back high to have a good running game. And he listed off a bunch of examples. Now, I think in this class, the running backs that you're going to get on day 2 and maybe even in early day 3, I think a lot of those guys can come in and be contributors right away. Maybe not all of them are going to be starters, but the running backs that can be part of a committee and maybe grow into a bigger role. I don't think the Cowboys feel like the running back position was the reason why they didn't run the ball well last year. I think it took them half a season to figure out who their best running back was. And once they did, they actually ran the ball pretty well. And once they started to get a little healthier on the offensive line, I think we saw them, run the ball better, especially in the second half of the year when Brock Hoffman was into the lineup. I think they want to continue to add offensive line depth. I think they would like to grab maybe a swing tackle. But I don't anticipate this team drafting a running back in round 1. I still think it's a stretch to think they're going to draft a guard or a tackle in round 1. I think they believe it's more than just one player that's going to fix their run game.
All right.
Yeah, Mike McCarthy, not big on running the football. I mean, let's be honest. He wasn't big on it. Running the football, in my mind, takes an unbelievable commitment to saying we're going to do it. It really is.
You have the mentality that you're going to run the football, right? You can't just be sprinkle it in here or there, and you're not going to run the ball well that way.
And it's something that you have to absolutely hammer on. And I mean, you got to work at it all the time. And I think he would rather have not been in that position. I believe Schottenheimer will have a certain culture change. I think, I could see training camp being a little more physical. I mean, I could see an inside run, goal line short yardage situation being part of what they do. And
more padded practices, maybe. Yep.
Really thudding that up and being able to be smart how you practice. But I believe the Cowboys have okay backs. They had okay backs last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can take Williams and Miles Sanders and I think be okay. And so do they need another? Sure. But I don't believe that even remotely happens if they stay where they're at, not having a 4th round pick. I don't see them drafting back in the first 3 picks.
No. I think the other thing that would help the run game, and I think Mike McCarthy deserves a lot of credit for what he can do as an offensive play caller, because his offenses have always been good whenever his starting quarterback has been healthy. But they primarily played a lot out of shotgun over the last couple of years. And it's really hard to run the ball consistently well out of shotgun, right? Your running backs just don't get a head start. Where I wouldn't be surprised if we see Brian Schottenheimer put his quarterback under center a little bit more and let his running back get downhill. I think even a small change like that could have a big impact on your running game in 2025.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, defensive coordinators are smart enough to figure out you don't the pistol is not run in the NFL because the back is too deep. That's the back behind the quarterback. You got to offset the back one way or the other when you're in the gun. And when you're in the gun and you got the back offset, we know it limits where you're going to go with the football. You call it downhill running. I'm saying it's the gaps of where you're going to go. And are you running inside zone, outside zone, draw, lead, all the things that you could do. But we know Dak Prescott ultimately is a good quarterback when he has an option to run play action off of that. He's not going to drop back and sit back there and pick and piece you to death. He ain't going to do that. So again, I believe Schottenheimer's smart enough to know that, and whether they put him under center some, and that's something that they major in, we'll see. But at the end of the day, he's a better quarterback when you can run the football and play action off of it.
Just like every quarterback is, right? Every quarterback in the league is better when you can run the ball. And I think that's why Schottenheimer is going to they're not going to be one of these teams that's running the ball 65% of the time. I think they just want to, when they run the ball, I just think they want to be better and more effective at it.
All right. I promised that we would acknowledge some of our great fans and listeners and viewers that have been a part of the show. Forgive me, we get carried away and we start talking, and we're pumped for tonight. But we've got Hoodie Kush 81 who says, "Guys, how are you?" Fallen says, "Hello." Iceberg Slim says, "Marcus, Jerry Jones is not going to pass on Tet McMillan."
I agree. If he's there, they're not passing.
S. Parker says, "Trade back," which is something Coach and Marcus, you guys have been talking about for a while. Black Pilled says, "All of you wide receiver running back fans, who is starting at cornerback?"
Kalen Carson, maybe. Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if that's a position they address in free agency, maybe after the draft, if they can't get a guy early.
Let's see. I'm just kind of scrolling here. Hang with me, guys. Let's see. We got Ron jumping in. He's made a couple of comments. Glenn says, "Move down." We got a ton of comments, like a lot. Ron says, "Start over." What other teams willing to trade with Dallas? It just depends.
I got Seattle, Denver, potentially Arizona. Arizona's looking to get a tackle. Those would be the three. Maybe Houston, if Houston wants to move all the way up. They've got multiple second-round picks. They're a team that I would check in on.
Opera Doc is a little concerned. He believes the Cowboys have too many needs and not enough picks. He's not sold on the plan that will turn
Welcome
things
to team
around.
Building. Every team thinks they don't have enough picks, right?
That's right. Let's see. Another Ron says trade back. Solomon says offensive line ain't a big need. 2 running back, 2 wide receivers helps the team now. Yeah, I think we agree on that. Let's see. One more. Let's see. Okay. Troy says trade back with Denver. Solomon says red zone plays need the run game. Offensive line get too many penalties in the red zone. So those are some of the highlights there. All right, guys. So
I'll tell you what I'd do right now. I'd take if you could figure out a way to take 3 Longhorns, I'm good. I'd be good with that too. doesn't do anything. Collins, Banks, Makuba, Golden.
Fair, right? Yeah, there's a lot of them. A lot of good guys in this draft. I like Jaden Blue. You want a running back on day 3? Blue's another good option.
Absolutely. Can you get your hands on Barron? I mean, let's just stay. Let's just get the Mike Ditka mentality. Let's stay in the state.
I think Will McClay would have a heart attack if you took a defensive back with sub 30-inch arms. I think he would quit before they do that.
So, Marcus, let me ask you this. When you and Landon did your final show, do you guys have a consensus of who your perfect first-round pick, the first 3 picks would be?
Yeah, for us, we like Tetairoa McMillan the best. It's just the best receiver in the class. And maybe it's not the perfect fit, but you let Brian Schottenheimer worry about the fit and you design an offense. Then in round 2, that's when we're just looking at grabbing the best defender available. Maybe that's one of the corners. Maybe it's a pass rusher. At pick 44, you should theoretically get somebody that you have a top 30, top 35 grade on. And then in round 3, I think that's probably where you're going to get the best value at running back. Maybe that's a DJ Giddens who played at Kansas State. The Cowboys hired the offensive coordinator, Connor Riley, to be their offensive line coach. I'm sure they know Giddens well. I think that plan of receiver, defender, running back is probably how you get 3 starters and how you improve your team the most.
Coach, what about you?
I'd say I'm good with that, or I'm good with, if you can't get the back, take the linebacker.
Exactly.
Take your best rated player that you got up there. Stick with how you got them on the board. Don't make sure today you don't get any. You don't want to make today. And I'm saying sitting around there today, we don't want any guys becoming 4-star generals that just graduated from the academy. Just stick the way that they got it in there and trust that those guys will make the picks. And I really do believe that Jerry and Stephen both value Will McClay and his opinion. And I think that at the end of the day, he will have it aligned the way it needs to be aligned, regardless of what happens from a trade standpoint. But we do know that, and I just texted a guy in the building. The phone is ringing right now, so we're at least on to that. We've at least got that right.
All right. Well, I can't wait. I know you guys can't wait either, and it's going to be fascinating. It's been eerily quiet, right? I mean, would you agree? I mean, it's been really, really quiet. No trades, no movement.
It's the first time ever all 32 teams have their pick in round 1. It's incredible.
And it shows, it shows that guys are valuing, guys are valuing the draft. So again, I think that's good with a team that sits at number 12, because the phone will be ringing. Now, is the value there? And that's what we're going to see tonight. That's what's going to make it, make it so fun to watch.
Be a great night. I can't wait.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for being with us and being a part of the show. And really, I think there's not much more to be said now. We just wait and let's see what happens. And again, Marcus, you and Landon will be on right after round 1, correct?
Yep. As soon as the draft ends, we'll be live on the YouTube channel, Locked On Cowboys. Check it out. The podcast will be in your feeds shortly after, and we'll get you ready for round 2.
All right. And Coach, I know you're doing radio and TV, but I look forward to being back with you. And Landon will join us on Monday. Marcus will do it again next week, and we'll recap everything.
Can't wait. Should be a lot of fun.
All right. Beautiful. All right, gentlemen, enjoy. NFL Draft Day is here, round 1 tonight in Green Bay. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of the show. Can't wait to see what happens and what the Cowboys do tonight at number 12. Do they stay at number 12? Do they move up? Do they move back? All of those questions will be answered in just a few hours. Thank you for watching. This has been the Cowboys Squad Show.